What's up guys, welcome back to another episode of Thai Talk, and today we're going to be talking about changing the gear oil. So guys, we're just going to run through a few pretty easy steps that will enable you to do this job if you ever need to. Now, firstly, you're going to want a cup or a receptacle of some kind to catch the oil. The oil plug is a 12mm plug, so you're going to need a 12mm socket. So first of all, you're just going to want to let any excess drain off before you start removing the gearbox cover to drain off all of the fluid. Now, I'm sure that there is a way to drain the fluid without removing the gearbox cover. I'm going to remove the gearbox cover because I want to have a look inside the gearbox to see if there's any damage to the gears or if there's any small fragments of metal, which you can sometimes find inside the gearbox. So in this episode, we're going to be removing the cover, we're going to be inspecting the gears, cleaning out the box itself, and then filling it with fresh oil. So what you're going to need for this is a 10mm socket, a 12mm socket, and an 8mm socket. As you can see, I'm removing all of the 8mm sockets here. There's around 3, and it's here, here, and here. And also there's another 2 8mm, and they are here and here. So I will say at this point that it is quite difficult to get the cover off. So I used a bit of a combination of jimmying and shushing, and it came out eventually, but it really is stuck in there. I wouldn't put too much pressure in there, like hammering stuff into the gap to try and spread it open. Just take it easy, you know, you're not trying to smash it to pieces, you're just trying to pull it away from the axle and the other gears inside. So take it nice and steady, don't rush it, and you will get there eventually. This was my first time actually removing the cover from the gears, so it seemed a lot more difficult the first time, but now I know how to do it. It's going to be a lot easier in the future. So as I say, I would suggest getting a screwdriver, as I am here, and just starting to move it very slowly, and it will come eventually. Obviously there's a gasket there holding it together, and it will come eventually, so just a little bit of encouragement, nothing too heavy, will get that cover off.
A few moments later.
Okay guys, so here we are. At this point I've got the case separated, and I'm just slowly easing it out so that I don't damage anything. One thing that I will say you need to be aware of is that there may be 2 gear parts that could fall out, roll around and disappear. There's also a very important washer that might come out. So just be careful when you do actually remove the whole cover from the case. There you can see it's come off now. Nothing seemed to fall out, which is nice. You can see that the gasket did not survive in any way at all, although I did change that recently. I had that changed by somebody quite recently, so definitely make sure that you have a spare gasket ready for when you want to put this all back together again. Okay, so at this point I'm going to start removing the gears that don't need to be in there. So you've got the gears there, they come out really easily, you don't need any kind of press or anything like that to get them out. And there you can see just below the gear that's remaining inside the box, the washer that dropped out. So these seem in pretty good condition. There's no major damage to them. Make sure you inspect them, check for any pieces of chunks of metal like knocked out of the gears. But mine seem okay, so that's obviously a bonus. Just as I say, make sure you keep that washer and don't lose it, because for some setups it's very, very necessary. So at this point you can go ahead and remove any excess gasket material. We are gonna use a craft knife to remove the leftover gasket and then sand it all down with some 600 grit sandpaper. But first of all, we're just going to clean out the gearbox and get rid of any stuff in there. You can see I'm just using the carb cleaner and a toothbrush, which is my go-to cleaning setup for things. Often it works really great. And just go at it, spray away, make sure you get rid of all of the oil in there, any pieces of metal, any kind of stuff like that. Okay guys, so now we've moved on to a new day because I didn't have the gasket and the shop that I usually use didn't have any in. So now I've gone ahead and I've got the gasket, so we're going to go and we're going to start removing any excess gasket material left around the seal. So as you can see, I'm just using a blade from a craft knife just to get the really thick stuff off, and then once that's been done, we're going to use the 600 grit sandpaper, and that's really going to get it nice and smooth and get rid of any kind of stuff that might ruin the seal or break the seal and cause a leak. So as you can see from the video, I'm just going around nice and steady, just making sure I pay attention to all the areas, sand it down with the sandpaper, get it nice and clean, and then it's going to be ready for the new gasket. It's really essential that you get a good seal on this so that you don't have any oil leaks. That's the last thing that you want. So guys, now you can just go ahead with a rag or a microfiber cloth and just clean up everything in there, because we're going to get ready to put the new gasket and the cover back on. So as you can see, I'm going round just making sure everything's clean so that we can make sure we get a really nice seal on this gasket. So guys, here it is. Here's the new gasket with the cover. I've also cleaned up the cover and made sure that that's nice. Also, additionally, last night I actually sprayed this up to make it look super fresh. That's just some regular spray paint. Who knows if it's going to survive, but we're certainly going to find out. So again, it's a little bit difficult, I will say this, to get the gears back in, but make sure you go with this setup here. It's washer first, and then the smaller gear, and then the bigger gear. I've fast forwarded it because it took me bloody ages, but there it is. So now we can actually get the cover back on, and again, it's really difficult. I must say there must be an easy way to do it, but persistence pays off, and you will get there in the end. I got there in the end, and trust me, if I can, then you guys at home can. Just keep at it and make sure that your gasket is placed nicely, and just slowly slide it on. So while we're looking at it, I'll go into a bit more detail about how I sprayed the cover. It's just a matte black as a primer, and then a medium gold as the base coat. I didn't put any clear coat on there. As I said earlier, who knows if it's going to survive or not. My fingers are crossed, I'm pretty sure it's going to be alright. I sanded it down with some 600, my favourite grit, and here you can see it looks pretty nice. So guys, now we're going to put the bolts back in. You remember we've got 5 8mm, and of course the drain plug is a 12mm. I have some 10mm though because of the dust guard that I use, but most of you guys are just going to have 8mm, and of course, as I say, the 12mm drain cover. So of course, a really important thing to do is put them all in hand tight, and then when you actually go to tightening them up, don't go round in a circle like I am here. Make sure that you go from corner to corner to make sure that the seal is nice and flat and it seals really good on that gasket. As some of you guys at home might have noticed, I do sometimes make some mistakes with the things that I do. This is all new territory for me. I'm very new to the scooter game, so a lot of the times I'm learning with you guys as well. So please excuse me if I do make some mistakes sometimes. There's plenty of really decent information online. You can find out some really good things there. So as you can see, here we go, everything's tightened back up. And now there's one thing left to do, which is the thing that you've all been waiting for. The gear oil, the new fresh, this is Castrol ATW90 gear oil, and we are going to fill that gearbox up. From what I understand, what's in this tube is pretty much enough for the gearbox. So what you want to do is just plug that little nozzle in there and start squeezing out the gearbox oil nice and steady. Don't just like try and squirt it all in there like crazy, and eventually you'll run out of what's inside the tube. You'll notice that here soon. Start squeezing it out like a tube of toothpaste, and eventually it'll all run out. And then what will happen is when you pull the tube of the gear oil away, it's all gonna spray out again. So again, make sure you have your cup or receptacle to catch that excess oil. So I'd leave it to drain out a little bit before putting the plug back in again. So I'm leaving it till it's, you can't see too well from here, but it was pretty slow at that point, so I thought, okay, now's the time to put the plug back in again. And then of course you're going to have a little excess oil all over the place, the microfiber cloth, the rag, the bit of tissue. This is where that comes in handy, and you can just wipe everything off. So now 12mm socket, tighten up that plug, make sure that it's not going to leak anywhere, and it's job done. So of course, as you know from the previous episode that I uploaded, I reconditioned the clutch, the pulley and the clutch bell. So those are going to come on now. I'm going to put those on, and hopefully we're going to have removed that squeaky cricket chirping sound. Now I know one of you guys asked about this, and unfortunately I didn't make a video of whether or not it actually fixed the scooter. But I can tell you that yes, it did actually fix that sound. So if any of you guys are actually suffering with that, just give your rear pulley a little bit of a grease around the sleeve and the shaft, and it should remove that. So here we go, putting everything back together again. There's the variator, there's the clutch and rear pulley, and of course the next thing we're going to need is the belt. Oh no, the next thing we're going to do is my little hose collection there. These hoses here, one of them just comes from the overflow from the carburetor, the other one is from an oil breather. I just thought I'd make them look super cool like that. And then of course I'm going to put back my carburetor dust guard. This again from a previous episode, you can see that how I made that dust guard. I'm still super happy with that. I can't believe I actually made that myself, I must say. So I have that in with two 10mm bolts, and yeah, I mean it fits really nice. You know, if you want to look back at one of my older episodes, you can actually see how to make this. I've got a template and the whole stage of how I made it. So go back, check out my other videos, and you can make one for yourself too. So here we go. The belt's going on. Make sure your belt's the right way around. Just compress the pulley, and then you'll be able to get that over the front axle there. I don't know if it's called an axle or not. The front shaft where the variator is. Then of course the drive face goes on. Hand tight those bolts on. Next up you're going to need the clutch bell, and again hand tight that nut on. We learned from the previous episode that's 14mm, the drive face is 17mm, and then of course once that's done you can buzz them on with your gun, as you're going to see me do here eventually. There we go, we've got the socket, it's buzzed on, it's nice and tight. What you're seeing me do here is just making sure that the belt doesn't have any slack in it, so that when I do eventually start the scooter up, it's not going to flap around or have any problems. So guys, this is the end of this episode. What we've learned in this episode is how to take off the gearbox cover. We've also learned how to clean the gears and make sure that everything's nice and fresh and ready for some fresh gearbox oil. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Of course, like, comment, share and subscribe to Thai Talk for more two-stroke life coming at you from the land of smiles, also known as Thailand. So I'll see you next time guys. I've got plenty of content coming up. Keep checking back on the page, keep checking back on my YouTube channel. There's some really good stuff coming up. See you next time.